Welcome back to the God Power channel. This is the channel where we're going to unlock the God Power laying dormant on the inside of you. But first, today, we have to finish the book of Genesis. And we're on chapter 50, which is the last book, the last chapter in the book. So what we're going to do is we're going to finish this book of Genesis today. So thank you for everybody who's been rocking out. This is a good thing. We're almost done. I think I had black hair when I started this. Now I got grays. But anyways, so in the last chapter, 49, we know that Israel, Jacob, took his last breath, and in doing so, he blessed his children. Each one of them, he blessed them. You know what I'm saying? So you can go back and watch that to get more details and see why I put it in air quotes, right? But chapter 50 starts off like this. So you got to see what's going to happen to end off this whole story, right? Because after this story, the next book goes 400 years into the future. So none of these people, their sons, none of them are going to be alive. So here it goes, the last chapter, 50. Joseph threw himself on his father and wept over him and kissed him. Then Joseph told the physicians who served him to embalm his father's body. So Jacob was embalmed. The embalming process took the usual 40 days, and the Egyptians mourned his death for 70 days. So, Israel, Jacob was a big figure because he was Joseph's dad. And remember, Joseph is a big figure in Egypt, so it's a big thing. When the period of mourning was over, Joseph approached Pharaoh's advisors and said, "Please do me this favor and speak to Pharaoh on my behalf. Tell him that my father made me swear an oath. He said to me, 'Listen, I'm about to die. Take my body back to the land of Canaan and bury me in the tomb I prepared for myself. So please allow me to go and bury my father. After this burial, I will return without delay.'" So Joseph is asking to fulfill his father's request. But he has to get permission from the Pharaoh. Even though Joseph's position in Egypt is so high up, he still has to get permission from the Pharaoh to do some stuff like this. So that's one thing just to note. Pharaoh agreed to let he agreed to Joseph's request. He was like, "Go and bury your father as he made you promise." So Joseph went up to bury his father. He was accompanied by all of Pharaoh's officials and the senior members of Pharaoh's household and all the senior officials of Egypt. So it was all like the important people that was accompanying Joseph, or the important people of Egypt that were accompanying Joseph along this trek to go bury Jacob, Israel. Joseph also took his entire household and his brothers and their households. So it was a big old crowd of people. But they left their little children and the flocks of herds in the land of Goshen. A great number of chariots and charioteers accompanied Joseph. This is a big deal, yo. This is like if a really, 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 like the president passed away, you see the caravan of cars and stuff like that. This is what that looked like, except with chariots, you know what I'm saying? They're like, somebody was walking to work like, "Oh, what the heck is going on here?" You know what I'm saying? I can see that's happening. So when they arrived at the threshing floor of Atad, near the Jordan River, they held a very great and solemn memorial service with a 7-day period of mourning for Joseph's father. The local residents, the Canaanites, watched the mourning at the threshing floor of the Atad. Then they renamed that place, which is near the Jordan River, that is, and they call it Abel Mizraim. For they said, "This is a place of deep mourning for these Egyptians." So the Canaanites renamed that place. Now remember, they're back in the land of Canaan. And so this is their original people. This is where they come from. But remember, this family specifically, got moved to Egypt. So everybody in this family line is in Egypt now, in a land called Goshen. But they had to go back to go bury their pops. Or Joseph. Joseph was not everybody's pops, but it was the 12 dudes' pops, which was a big tribe. It was a lot of people. So Jacob's sons did as he had commanded. They carried his body to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave in the field of Machpelah near Mamre. This is the cave that Abraham had bought as a permanent burial site from Ephron the Hittite. Now Abraham had some foresight, because bro was alive way long time ago. He had some foresight, you know what I'm saying? And everybody's actually like following his his teaching or following, his intention. And I think that's pretty cool. After burying Jacob, Joseph returned to Egypt with his brothers and all who had accompanied him to his father's burial. But now that their father was dead, Joseph's brothers became fearful. Now Joseph will show us his anger and pay us back for all the wrong we did to him. They were really scared. And I don't understand this because they must have been feeling guilty for a long time. That guilt just sat, and they thought they thought that their mercy only rested in their dad. But when their dad died, no. Let's see. I don't think Jacob is that kind of guy, but we'll see what happens here. So they sent a message to Joseph. I said Jacob. I don't think Joseph is that kind of guy, my bad. So they sent a message to Joseph. Before your father died, he instructed us to say to you, please forgive your brothers for the great wrong they did to you, for their sin in treating you so cruelly. So we, your servants, the God of your father, beg you to forgive our sin. When Joseph received the message, he broke down and wept. Then his brothers came and threw themselves down before Joseph. Look, we are your slaves. But Joseph replied, don't be afraid of me. Am I God that I can punish you? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people. Now, don't be afraid. I will continue to take care of you and your children. So he reassured them by speaking kindly to them. But the fact of the matter is two things wrong. The fact of the matter, they think that Joseph was on that time, and after he's been treating them great, he gave them a whole land for them and all their children and stuff, and gave them flocks and flocks of herds to watch over. So the fact that they're still thinking like that is weird. But then the fact that they wrote a letter to him talking about, Dad said, hey, treat us good. And Dad said, treat us good. And they're like, I don't know if that's the truth, right? I don't remember Israel ever saying that. So were they just writing that? Did they lie out of fear? And that has been like a motif throughout this whole book of Genesis. A lot of these characters are lying out of fear. You know what I'm saying? And every time, they don't have to. They find out they don't even have to do that. They just rock with whatever the situation is. It usually works out in their favor. All right. So, Joseph and all his brothers and their families continue to live in Egypt. Joseph lived to the age of 110. He lived to see 3 generations of descendants of his son, Ephraim. Now remember, he had 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. So he saw 3 generations of Ephraim. And he lived to see the birth of the children of Manasseh's son, Machir, whom he claimed as his own. And so Manasseh had a son, which was made Joseph a grandfather. And to his other son, he was a great-grandfather to his seeds. And so he's pretty old, 110 years old. And then he said to them, soon I will die. He was talking to his brothers. But God will surely come to help you and lead you out of this land of Egypt. He will bring you back to the land he solemnly promised to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Then Joseph made the sons of Israel swear an oath. And he said, when God comes to help you and lead you back, you must take my bones with you. And so Joseph died at the age of 110. The Egyptians embalmed him, and his body was placed in a coffin in Egypt. Now, this is the first time that son thing has been broken, really. Like, all of the sons, major characters, have been buried in that cave, but Joseph has not. And he knew that he was about to pass away. And so what he did is he asked his brothers and whomever is there, like, hey, yo, look, when God comes and takes you out of this land and moves you back to our land, Canaan, the land he promised to Abraham, then I want you to take my bones back there too. And I'm assuming that he wants to be buried in that same cave. But the thing is, this is the end of chapter 50, and Genesis doesn't go on any further. So again, after this, it skips 400 years, and these people are still in Egypt. So, I mean, obviously the name of the next book in the Bible is called Exodus. And so that's when they leave Egypt. But it takes 400 years of them being there after Joseph says this, you know what I'm saying? So this is the end of chapter 50. And we finally made it to the end of the book of Genesis. Now, just to recap a little bit more, Joseph wants to be buried back in the land of Canaan. If we can remember, each of his father, which is Jacob, Israel, right? His father, which is Isaac, and then his father, which is Abraham, right? And Abraham is the dude that was first named Abram, who got turned into Abraham. These stories have been following like the same path, and as we see, the book of Genesis is about that family. We just follow that family to the end. Like we started off from their descendants, like the people that were way older than them, like Noah and all those people like that, and then we followed it all the way down to the same family. So that's the end of Genesis. Hopefully learn something. That is the beginning of the world. That's how things started, according to the Bible, which I believe this is how things started. So if you have questions, cool. And you know what else is good to do? If you're really curious about all those things we read, and like, I don't know. Well, what you should do is all those places that we named, go look it up. And go look at some of the people who live there. Like, we got the internet. Go look at some of the people's stories that live there. And look at their beliefs. Look at their culture. See why they believe the things they believe and see what's up. You know what I'm saying? That way you can cross-reference, if you're that kind of person, cross-reference some of these historical stuff with what's out there for real. And once you do that, you're like, whoa, okay. They're talking about a real place. It feels like a story, but they're talking about a real place. And the reason why I say that is because they're finding evidence to this day of some of these stories. So thank you again for joining me in the book of Genesis. I hope you enjoyed the day. And remember, but you must remember, you got that God power. On your heart, tugging on your... Get them.